I never imagined 3 burly thugs would show up at my front door one sunny afternoon in Willow Creek Estates. My name is Laura and I had moved here 6 months earlier seeking the quiet suburban life I always dreamed about after my divorce. The neighborhood looked perfect with its neat lawns, blooming flowers, and friendly porch lights glowing at dusk. I had no idea that Karen, the HOA president, ruled this place like her own little dictatorship with an iron fist wrapped in pastel cardigans. The trouble started innocently enough when her first official letter landed in my mailbox 2 weeks after I unpacked. It complained that my rose bushes were 2 inches too tall according to the sacred HOA guidelines she loved quoting. I sighed heavily and trimmed them that same weekend just to avoid any drama in my new home. But that small act of compliance only encouraged Karen to dig deeper into my personal space with ridiculous rules. Next, she targeted my American flag hanging proudly on the porch, claiming it was too political for the community standards. I could not believe my eyes when another certified letter arrived demanding I remove it within 48 hours or pay a fine. My frustration grew slowly as neighbors began crossing the street to avoid eye contact whenever I waved hello in the mornings. Karen had started spreading quiet rumors that I was a troublemaker who hated the HOA and wanted to ruin their perfect suburb. The isolation felt heavy, like a weight pressing on my chest during those long evenings alone on my porch. Still, I stayed calm and intelligent about it, refusing to explode even though the pettiness was eating away at my patience. I began saving every single email and letter she sent, documenting each complaint with dates, times, and exact wording. That quiet preparation became my secret weapon against her growing campaign of harassment and control. The tension thickened when she started leaving passive-aggressive sticky notes on my door at random hours of the night. One note warned about my lawn being 1 inch too long, while another criticized the color of my welcome mat as non-compliant. I could feel the anger building inside me like a slow-burning fire, but I kept my cool and mowed the grass anyway. Neighbors stopped inviting me to block parties and pool gatherings as Karen turned the community against me, one whisper at a time. The smell of barbecue smoke from their backyard events drifted over my fence while I sat alone wondering how it got this bad. Karen even called me late one evening, her voice dripping with fake sweetness as she threatened more fines if I did not comply immediately. I replied evenly, telling her to review the bylaws herself before wasting my time with empty threats that meant nothing legally. She hung up abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief at how unhinged her power trip had become. That was the moment I decided enough was enough and installed professional security cameras covering every inch of my property. The small blinking red lights brought me a strange sense of peace as I tested the footage on my laptop that night. Everything changed on that bright Tuesday afternoon when the doorbell rang during my quiet lunch break on the porch. 3 large men in work boots and stained shirts stood there looking impatient with hedge trimmers and heavy tools in hand. The leader smirked and announced that Karen from the HOA had sent them to correct my ongoing violations right then and there. My heart pounded hard against my ribs, but I kept my voice steady, asking for their written authorization to step onto my land. He waved a crumpled paper that was nothing more than a vague HOA notice with no legal power to force entry. Before I could protest further, the men pushed past me, heading straight toward my backyard rose bushes with determination. The sharp metallic scent of their tools mixed with fresh cut grass filled the air, making my stomach twist with unease. I followed quickly, phone already recording every step and every word they muttered under their breath about Karen. "This is private property, gentlemen, and you are trespassing without permission," I stated firmly while keeping the camera steady. One thug laughed mockingly, saying Karen had warned them I would be difficult, but they had a job to finish anyway. They started hacking wildly at my perfectly healthy bushes, ignoring my repeated warnings to stop immediately or face consequences. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I dialed the police discreetly, my pulse racing but my mind staying sharp and focused. That is when Karen herself roared up in her shiny SUV, slamming the door and marching across my lawn like she owned it. "What is taking so long?" she barked at the thugs, gesturing wildly with her clipboard as if directing traffic at a crime scene. I turned the phone toward her, capturing her exact words as I explained these men were damaging my property on her illegal orders. She laughed haughtily, claiming this was official HOA enforcement and that I simply did not understand how things worked around here. Her arrogance hung thick in the air like cheap perfume while the thugs exchanged nervous glances behind her back. "You cannot send people to intimidate homeowners, Karen," I said calmly. "This crosses every legal line and you know it." The police sirens wailed closer, growing louder as the thugs suddenly realized they were on camera from multiple angles. Panic flashed across their faces and they began backing away, dropping tools clumsily onto the grass in their haste. One tripped and fell face first into the mud, crawling desperately toward the fence while cursing Karen under his breath. The others followed suit, scrambling over my property line like rats abandoning a sinking ship in broad daylight. Karen stood frozen in horror, her face turning beet red as the reality of her mistake crashed down around her. The officers arrived moments later and I handed over my phone footage explaining the entire trespassing and harassment incident clearly. Karen tried spinning wild excuses, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but her frantic voice only made her sound guiltier. After the police issued warnings and escorted the thugs away, I knew the real battle was just beginning in the legal arena. I spent that entire evening compiling every email, recording, photo and neighbor statement into one airtight professional dossier on my laptop. My lawyer specializing in HOA disputes reviewed the files the next morning and confirmed Karen had broken multiple state laws on harassment. The real bombshell came from a text message she had sent to the lead thug saying scare her into compliance no matter what it takes. That single line proved intent and turned her power play into a liability that could cost the entire HOA board dearly. I presented the full evidence packet at the emergency HOA board meeting 2 days later with my head held high and voice steady. The other members sat in stunned silence as I played the clearest recordings of Karen ordering the thugs onto my land. She fidgeted in her chair, her usual smug mask cracking as sweat glistened on her forehead under the fluorescent lights. "You cannot do this to me, I am the president," she protested weakly, but her words fell flat in the quiet room. I smiled thinly, replying that the bylaws she loved so much clearly stated removal for actions creating legal liability. The board voted unanimously to strip her of the presidency effective immediately and appoint an interim leader on the spot. Karen stormed out in tears, muttering empty threats that echoed down the hallway while everyone else exhaled in visible relief. The neighborhood felt lighter the very next morning as people began waving hello again and stopping to chat by the mailboxes. Quiet thank you notes appeared under my door from neighbors who had been too afraid to speak up before her downfall. I even hosted a small backyard gathering the following weekend where laughter and normal conversation finally filled the air once more. The rose bushes grew back stronger than ever and my flag still flies proudly without a single complaint from anyone. Now when I water the garden in the golden evening light, I cannot help but chuckle at how it all unfolded so perfectly. A little bit of power in the wrong hands turns a soccer mom into a would-be suburban crime boss until the law steps in. The suburbs are peaceful again and I sleep soundly knowing that sometimes the calmest person in the room holds all the cards.